Hey guys, LevelCap here. The new Battlefield 4 patch is out. You can tell because my mini-map in the lower left-hand corner is absolutely huge. It is at 200% size right now. I'm going to scale it down to about 150% size later in the video. It's a little bit more manageable, but there have been a ton of weapon changes, and that's what I really want to focus on here. Some of the cool universal changes that have seemed to have affected most guns in the game are the silencer. Basically, the way this weapon attachment worked before the patch is you would apply it to your gun. It would make it so you didn't show up on the minimap when you shot the gun. It would make a quieter sound, but it also greatly reduced the bullet velocity of your weapon. Some guns it reduced it way too much. Some weapons it would take the bullet velocity all the way down to less than 200 meters per second, which was just an ineffective bullet velocity and made it really hard to use the suppressor in so many situations. So try out the suppressor on a lot of guns now. You might find that it's actually really incredible, and guns that have a high bullet velocity to begin with will not be dropped down to such extremes when you put the silencer on there. For example, with the Acog A3, shoots 670 meters per second based. When you put the suppressor on there, shoots around 380 now. So it's a much more manageable bullet velocity. Sure, it hurts the gun's range potential a lot, but it's also keeping you off the minimap. So try out the silencer, especially on a lot of your favorite guns, and see what happens. Pretty much across the board, Pdws have been improved. Their aiming down sight and their hipfire accuracy has been improved while on the move. So basically, they're trying to tell you, move around with the engineer weapons now. You have much greater mobility and accuracy while using these weapons. Try and take advantage of that. It's still kind of hard to argue to use the engineer in an entirely infantry-based situation. Sure, RPGs can be useful, but let's be honest, in Metro, the first class you jump to isn't generally the engineer. You might have some more reasons to now that Pdws are going to be a little bit more interesting, especially for somebody who wants to play extremely aggressive and get up close and personal. Some Pdws you should definitely keep your eye on are the P90. It pretty much got universal buffs across the board, so try that out again. And also the JS2, kind of a weird Chinese PDW that got universal buffs and no debuffs. So try out those two PDWs. I think you will be pleasantly surprised. Now let's talk about assault rifles, the bread and butter of infantry-based combat in Battlefield 4. Certainly, you're going to notice that a lot of your guns are taking a little bit longer to kill, especially in CQB, because of the universal damage debuff that pretty much all 25 max damage guns got. There are going to be some weapons that you should definitely keep your eyes on. Bullpup design weapons have... Bullpup guns, those are the guns where the magazine loads behind the trigger. Bullpup design weapons, that's where the magazine is loading behind the trigger mechanism on the weapon, have generally seen a universal buff across the board. Ones to look out for specifically are the L85A2 that got a massive recoil buff, and so did the F2000. It got a massive side-to-side recoil buff, and so basically you should have a much easier time controlling these two assault rifles. The AR-160 got a nice vertical recoil buff, so you might want to revisit that weapon. I always thought it looked kind of cool, and I just wasn't too impressed with its performance, so certainly it might be time to revisit that weapon. The Bulldog assault rifle, on the other hand, got a bit of a recoil nerf. Not huge, but if you are used to a certain way that the gun recoils and how accurate it is, you might be a little bit disappointed. Now I'm using the AWS in this clip here, and this got a spread decrease nerf. So basically, it's not going to be quite as accurate as you remember. It's still going to be a good, effective LMG overall, but not quite as overpowered as it used to be, in my opinion anyway. The SAR-21 managed to get even less recoil this time around, which is amazing considering it is one of the lowest recoil assault rifles in the game. It did, however, get a debuff to its aiming down sight accuracy. Basically, they applied the attributes of a bullpup assault rifle, but it's still going to have extremely low recoil. So if the overall base accuracy is bothering you, you can always slap a heavy barrel on there. And I have a feeling the SAR-21 is going to be a fun gun to use, especially when trying to drop targets at extreme ranges. Remember that semi-auto recon exclusive weapon, the SR-338, that everybody hated and was deemed one of the worst weapons in Battlefield 4? Well, it's basically been patched. The spread increase on the gun has been fixed, so basically you shouldn't be missing your targets even though your crosshair or red dot is directly on the person you're trying to shoot. So give this gun a try now. It's been deemed a terrible weapon before, but now I think it could actually be pretty darn useful. I'm going to get around to it. I haven't tried it out yet. There are just so many weapons to test out. If you're a DMR player, then try out the SVD-12. This one got universal upgrades across the board for its recoil, its spread. There's a lot of nice little bumps to that weapon there, so you may end up liking it a lot. Speaking of DMRs, although they didn't get any sort of universal buff, the fact that assault rifles and standard machine guns got a universal damage reduction, DMR should now be considerably more effective, so you may want to revisit that weapon class. Time to kills are going to go up considerably in this game, which is a good thing, especially considering how much bullet spam there is in general. Before, I would just kind of die running out of cover for half of a second just to some random bullets or the bullet volume in an area, but now you actually have a little bit more warning, a little bit more time to survive. Scope sway is perfect in this patch. Everything looks good. I would recommend trying out Acog Scopes. This is something I would never have recommended before because the visual scope sway and the visual scope recoil was just too intense. It didn't really represent things too well, but try out the Acog. You can see here I'm using it on the Scar H. Got a muzzle brake on there and a vertical foregrip. I'm still able to maintain decent accuracy at medium to long-ish range. And when I'm shooting with it, the massive zoom is not hard to keep on target there. I foresee a lot of really effective assault rifle loadouts and maybe even LMG loadouts using higher magnification optics now, which for the most part in the competitive realm of Battlefield have kind of been forgotten about just because the visual recoil was so intense. Everybody just used the standard red dot sights, but the Acog is such a popular sight in modern shooting and military shooting that it'll be nice to actually see some of these optics make a bigger appearance on the actual battlefield. So I know this video really only scratches the surface of some of the gun changes in the new patch, but I hope it gives you an idea of certain areas to look at first. As always guys, thanks for watching and I'll see you next time. This is LevelCap signing off.